Welcome to Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective podcast, where we meet experts from all walks of life to learn their intrinsic motivation so that they can share it with the world. What do we have in store today? Stay tuned to find out more. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone out there in podcast land. This is Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza.
And I am David.
And today I am interested in meeting with our guest Jeff Hotchkiss. He actually is living in, as I read his bio, he's living in both worlds, and those worlds that I live in. So I'm really excited to see his opinion on the state of things. He is a business development consultant. He's also a tour guide. He's a handyman. He's also an author of a best-selling book, Putting Wisdom to Work, Practical Mindfulness for Maximal Living. Really interested in hearing about that. And he's also worked as an executive for Apple Computer. He's been a founder of Ulysses Teas, I may be mispronouncing that, and he is a publishing entrepreneur in the book that I just talked about. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Jeff.
Hello, everybody. Great to be here.
Yes, and you are in the Bay Area, correct?
Yeah, I'm in a little seaside town of Santa Cruz here in Northern California.
That's David's. Yeah, that's David's neck of the woods.
Oh, yeah? Tell me.
I was born and raised in San Jose.
Oh, yes, myself as well. Mm-hmm. Yep,
yeah.
Down Almaden Valley. Yep.
Yeah. Yes, and my father still lives over there. He lives over there near Mount Madonna, up there in the mountains.
Very nice area. Where are you guys based now?
Now, we're in Georgia now. Yeah. All the way in the East Coast.
Nice. Such a small world these days.
Yeah, a lot of fun memories. Next time I'm over there, I'll buy you a drink at Margaritaville.
Oh, you got it. They got new owners. Everything's more expensive there. Well, you might want to rethink that.
Oh, really? Well, the reason I even mention that is because I used to know the owner. So I guess if they have new owners, I guess he doesn't own it anymore.
I think there's a new thing. They got white tablecloths down there. It doesn't feel like Margaritaville anymore.
Whoa. It doesn't feel like Margaritaville.
But that's life, baby. Everything's changing all the time.
Yeah,
roll with
right.
it.
Yeah.
Roll with it or get rolled over.
Is that because of the Warriors winning? I mean, what's going on out there?
The Santa Cruz Warriors are.
Hard to tell. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So good. Life is good here. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so you have an interesting background because you've worked corporate-wise. You worked as an executive of Apple Computer, and sometimes on the surface you wouldn't connect someone working at Apple Computer with being an author of Wisdom to Work. So how are you able to bridge that gap?
Yeah, well, Apple Computer was an interesting stepping stone. Actually, I was with them at two different points in time, once in the 80s and then early 2000s. It's just all pieces to the puzzle, guys. Really, there's no direct link there at all, except in learning what you don't want to do, which is half the battle is realizing what you don't want to do. I love Apple Computers. I think they make fantastic products. For me, it wasn't the greatest place in the world to work. I couldn't really be creative and express myself there very well.
Huh. Mm. From the outside, it always seems like they're very encouraging to let you explore your creativity.
Absolutely, and that's a great, branding strategy on their part, and I think there's a lot of people that could be. It's funny, I was moving to the Bay Area in 1988 to try and get a job at Apple Computer. It would have been a great time to get in, but I got in the early 2000s, and it was very corporate and very structured, and I've got a real entrepreneurial spirit and love their computers, but for me it wasn't the greatest place to work. But it was a great experience, like you say, you get you pick up bits of wisdom wherever you go, and working in a large corporation teaches you how to get along with others. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or die.
Or die, yeah, adapt or die, for sure. How long were you there?
I left last time around, it was almost 3 years.
Okay.
And it was really fascinating, too, because they called us all into a conference room at one point in time. And I really wasn't loving the job at that point anyway, but I was doing it and doing well. And they said, well, we didn't want you, this is kind of a secret, but we've been running this division in 3 different towns for this last couple years, and we've decided to award this ongoing aspect of the division to the Austin, Texas group. So you're all laid off today.
Good old corporate.
It was a happy day for me because they handed us a nice little severance package, and I knew that I probably couldn't have lasted another month on my own. So they did the dirty work for me. But it was great, and like I said, I think I had the first Apple computer in Chico, California in 1984, and they've really been a great piece of equipment as far as allowing, the ability to, put ideas together, take ideas and give them some form, put them into some sort of aspect of graphics and now video and audio and all sorts of great things like we're doing now.
Mm-hmm. So you were there until about 2005. And I had a sister who had lived in San Francisco during the .com era, and they started having, I'll never forget, I had gone to visit for like a month, and they had all these pink slip parties. And being on the East Coast, we didn't know about these pink slip parties. What is this? Is this, subculture or whatever, counterculture? But it was just people getting laid off, and they found another job. It was just, that's when the bubble was happening. And so, long story short, the bubble burst there first and then migrated throughout the rest of the country. And you were talking about your tenure at Apple in 2005, which is still before the bubble burst in the 2000 decade, but you saw some writings on the wall in 2005. What was the environment like out there then?
Yeah, it was real competitive. It was real demanding. Apple's very demanding of their people. It just, I've been through a couple different .com experiences, a few different startups, and things come and go. Some things stick. But for me, I had a couple of different little ventures already kind of going on the side, so I was able to focus on those after leaving Apple, and had a lot more fun doing that, I think. But I think any kind of job these days is demanding, whether it was in back in those days or even today. I mean, my friends that are in the corporate world are all working really hard, it seems.
Absolutely. And so you actually bridged the gap, though. I mean, you were doing things on the side, and was it for most people that do things on the side, it's kind of like, well, let's see where this goes, and then it kind of gets a life of its own. What was it like on your end?
I've been involved in a number of startups, and I've started my own, a couple of little ventures here and there. And what you do is you get a taste for when something works, it becomes obvious real fast. You can swim upstream for as long as you want. But so I've always just tried things out. I had this tea company, an herb tea company based on organic olive leaf. And it had just been kind of puttering along, and the internet was really just getting up to speed in those days. And when I got laid off from Apple, I really put some effort into that, and it took off. So, you get a feel for it. I've had a lot of other ventures that, they just kind of putter along, and they don't really take off. It's a matter of timing and, market demand, supply and demand, and all these different things. So, I'm not sure what the question is now. I've lost track of that. Well, let's talk about my book, Putting Wisdom to Work.
Yeah, did it come about after the teas? What was the impetus for writing the book?
Yeah, it kind of like a couple different things came together. I had built up the tea company and sold it, and moved down to Santa Cruz in an attempt to retire, and got completely bored, but couldn't find any work, and really had an identity crisis. Really, kind of felt lost at that point. And a little while before that had been backpacking and camping with some friends, and we were telling stories one night, and my friends were all, Jeff, you got to write those stories down. Crazy, crazy, nutty life stories. We've all got them, but I decided to write mine down. And, not having any work going and having some time on my hands, I decided to try and put that into a book. And, it was a fun project, but then I realized there wasn't a book there. My stories weren't, that maybe they could. If I was a wonderful writer, I probably could have turned them into a book. But I did learn that, a lot of those stories were based on what, didn't work. Kind of trial and error, Most of the things that went bad ended up with a good story. So that's kind of that's how the book got started. I had some time and I had an idea, and so I decided to, shift gears from making it a novel, an autobiographical novel, into lessons on what I've learned and what works and what doesn't. And yeah, it took 7 years, a 7-year project. If I had any idea how long it was going to take, I would have never, ever even started. I would have never even thought of starting. But, once you get so far into a project, I was stubborn, stuck with it, and I'm really happy with the project. I think it came out. I think there's a lot of value in there for anybody that, wants to put the work in. There's benefits that'll come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
No easy answers, but there's a lot of great ideas out there. And I've studied so many of the masters over the years, and I don't know if there's a whole lot of new ideas. I did try and bring some new stuff into the book, things that I hadn't seen before and things that were working for me. But a lot of the material is really timeless. It sounds like you guys are probably pretty up to speed on motivational thinking and self-help and positive psychology and all of those things.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And hopefully you'll get a chance to, really dig into the book sometime. Let me know. I'll send you guys a copy or something.
That'd be great. I think what's different, though, like you mentioned, there's nothing new under the sun, but it's always our interpretation of it. So, like you said, if you had a piece of information before you had written a book, if you had known you were going to take 7 years to write it, you wouldn't have done it. But going through that process gave you a whole different perspective on something that could have been an age-old ideal. So, we definitely appreciate your viewpoint and want to dig into that a little bit.
Okay, let's dig.
Awesome.
Good.
So when you're talking about mindfulness, you're talking about practical mindfulness. I actually like that because it sounds like I'm using semantics here. When someone talks about mindfulness, it could be in the woo-woo or, like you said, self-help or what have you. But by you using practical in front of that, you're actually, in my opinion, sticking your feet in both worlds where you're like, hey, you could be mindful, but this is a practical way to approach mindfulness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the core, because it has to be usable. You talk about all these, great thinking and great ideas out there. The one extreme example is the movie The Secret, made $1 billion or something. But the ideas weren't really doable. They weren't really practical. So, I've really tried to keep myself rooted in, real world practices that make a difference. And that's it for me. I mean, it's you can dream all day long. Talk is cheap. I think a goal is just a daydream until you actually turn it into something.
No, I agree with you. I think that if we talk a little bit about contrast, that they both kind of go together, and that you were talking about The Secret, both the book and the movie. And at the time when it had come out, it was so new to so many people. If you weren't in the spiritual community, what have you, you're just like, what is this about The Secret, right? And then you're at barbecues and what have you, and then, your neighborhood Snoop or whatever, it's like, hey, did you, get you in a corner, did you hear about The Secret? And, everybody's talking about The Secret. It was around that 2005, 2006 time. It was, what's going on? And then everyone's like, well, this doesn't, I tried to follow it to the letter. It didn't work out for me, and I guess that's where your book and others had a response. But I think that if they didn't have that such feedback from a global perspective, just to explore different ideals, then we wouldn't be here talking about it, right?
Exactly. I'm not trying to throw shade on The Secret at all. I loved it. I learned a lot from it. Just as hundreds of other books and movies and speakers, and like I say, we're all kind of saying the same thing. I guess we're all just trying to help each other understand it and put some meat into it. Like that's what you wanted to focus on, the practical side to things. That's it. I mean, we all see these ideas, and people go to church every week, and people have lots of different things that they do to try and improve themselves. But the bottom line is, it takes some luck to make real changes happen, I think, and take some effort. And so when you if you dig into my book, there's an activity at the end of, not every chapter, but I think there's 4 or 5 activities in there that will guaranteed, like I said, if you put the work in, you're going to get some results out of that. It may not be exactly what you expected, but they'll probably be exactly what you need. And that, to me, is practical, when you can actually do something and see a result.
Mm-hmm. Could you give us an example? You had mentioned that at work you're working with so many different people, so you had to learn how to work with people successfully, or you couldn't even thrive during your tenure there. What did you learn working in the corporate world that you were able to parlay into self-help or your practical mindfulness in your daily life now?
That's a great question. Yeah, for me, I guess if I had to boil it down to something, it would be systemization. The ability to break a goal down into systematic parts. In a corporation, that environment, it breaks it down to parts, and it delegates those parts, and it works as a well-oiled machine. They generate a lot of results and a lot of profit. So that's the same kind of, you have to get along with other people to make that machine work. But systemization is really what's worked for me in the past, is, finding ideas, and that are, like you say, practical. They can be broken down into actual steps that you need to take, whether it be with my tea business and, the different ways I found to market it that worked. Those were systemizations. Those were approaches that worked. Same with the book and the practical mindfulness. It breaks down the goal of having a light heart and a happy mind and being productive and getting yourself focused on the things that matter. It's kind of a system. So, I've borrowed a lot from, different thinkers and jobs on ways that they've broken their task down into something that's actually doable, that can be repeated over and over again every single day. Because that's it. It's a process. It's a practice. You're never really there. It's just always about being in a happy practice, in a happy process some way.
I'm looking at how, again, before you had written a book, you said it had taken 7 years, and you're like, whoa, if I had known then. And in many cases, in my experience from corporate, right, if you're working in a system, right, you're not necessarily in an assembly line like maybe a generation before us, but like you said, it is a system. Could you talk about how, we all have what's going on in our personal lives, and we try to separate the two, but sometimes you bring your personal stuff to work, and there may have been fellow employees that maybe you didn't get along with, or you wouldn't want to have a beer with. What kind of strategies or tactics that you could think of that let you overcome any differences you may have had with people you worked with, so that the system would continue working?
I don't think I really learned much about that on the job. There was occasional workshops, there was trainings and all those things, but you're just basically in survival mode there. You're getting through the day and trying to make the most of it. But in writing the book, I had to really dig into the philosophy of self and the philosophy of others, and personally have come to the conclusion that I just accept people as they are. It's like people don't change, and you can wish they were going to be different all day long, or you can try and force them to being different. That has to come from within. So once you realize that you don't really have a lot of control over other people in the first place, you might as well just accept them as they are. And in the book, I talk about, getting to that level of comfort and that level of acceptance, and then making a personal decision. Do you want to stay in that environment, or do you want to navigate out of it? Do you want to change your orbit? Because you really can't change the orbit of those around you, but you have a lot of ability to, change your own personal orbit. And so, my philosophy is just based on acceptance, and then taking responsibility for your own happiness and well-being and peace of mind.
When you say changing, go ahead, David. Sorry about that.
No, I was just going to ask him, in the first chapter is called Look in the Mirror, and, whether you're writing a book or for any reason, anytime, a person has to look in the mirror and look at themselves, obviously that can be a very tough thing to do. And you mentioned about one of the things that you have to do is update your beliefs and realign your needs. When you're kind of going through that, what were some of the things that you had to do as far as your beliefs and realigning your needs?
Beliefs and needs, yeah. That's really, you guys are really getting to the core stuff right there. That's the bottom line there. And just to be clear, it's an ongoing process. I've learned a lot working on this book and helping other people work through some of these activities, and I'm doing some personal coaching now and doing peer counseling for seniors here in my area. And it's an ongoing process of defining what those needs really are and getting really clear on what the actual needs are, versus wants, and then massaging your beliefs in such a way that you can get focused on, what brings you joy and doing more of that and doing less of what brings you sorrow. It's so beliefs and needs really are the core, and that's the core of my work is needs assessment, figuring out what your needs really are, and taking a look at what maybe has worked for other people, and then managing your story, changing your internal dialogues and the scripts that really run your mind, in the background, is those internal dialogues that make everything happen, and beliefs kind of run those dialogues. So those are it's interesting you would pick those two pieces, because it's an ongoing process. But I found some practices that help for me, and I just took the time to write them down and having fun with them, because it is an ongoing process. And even today, I got up and meditated and got ready for this interview, and didn't just accept it was going to happen. Just I did the work to be ready, and now we're doing it, and it's going great. I'm enjoying it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, David had mentioned looking in the mirror, and you had also made reference to being in a person's orbit or changing an orbit. What's your take on everyone that you come in contact with being a mirror of what's going on inside of you?
That's really interesting, yeah. That's a real Buddhist concept there, is that, you're brought the challenges that you need. You're never brought a challenge that you can't handle. And, others, I don't know about you guys, but my personal experience is that, I get my most personal growth through interaction with others. And so, whether that mirror shows you what you want to see or what you don't want to see, it's, there's no use in arguing with the don't argue with the reflection. The mirror's just doing its job.
I think we all laughed a little hard on that one.
I mean, I think a lot of people, man, myself included, I used to argue with the reflection all day long. I'd be like, I don't like what I see, so I want it to be different. And, in the end, it's just, wow, you're just going to get tired. We all have those trigger people. I've got them in my life too, that they're going to trigger reactions one way or another. But boy, I've really found that as you become more mindful and put the time into learning to be in real time, being able to pay attention to the needs of others, the needs of yourself, and being able to do that kind of as things unfold, you can come to a level of acceptance with the other people that trigger you, and you can even find a little humor in it at times, And like I say, I just navigate my orbit as far away as I can from that which irritates me, and I aim to get closer to that which brings joy.
mean, yeah, completely understand that. So why, Jeff? Why are we so hard on ourselves?
You guys are getting the good questions out today. I don't know.
It's the homie's perspective, man.
The homie's perspective. Why so hard on ourselves? I ask myself that every single day.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Why do you think it is? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I kind of mean like dealing with people, have read your book and just your interactions, your own personal experiences, just your take. Why do you think? And then I'll give you mine, and I think Hamza will give you his too.
Yeah, sure. I think I think we're hardwired this way. We're not going to get into any grand design conversations here or free will or any of those things, but for whatever is behind consciousness, I think has engineered it to keep us striving. There's striving and there's savoring. Striving is kind of a drain on the battery, and then you stop and have some gratitude and savor it and enjoy life. It charges up your battery, and it's like that yin-yang polarity. We're hard on ourselves because we're designed to strive, to build, to create, to try, to chase, to procreate, to leave our mark, to build. And a lot of my work is kind of about developing that secondary reflex that I think we're also designed to savor and enjoy ourselves and enjoy our world and enjoy our lives. It's just we're not trained to do that as much. School doesn't train us to savor. Work doesn't train us to savor. If you're lucky, you've got a great family and friends that teach you how to, water ski and enjoy great food and, do all the wonderful, wonderful things that we have at our fingertips. But we're just not trained to savor that much. So we do what we're trained to do, and that's to strive. And striving makes us act really hard on ourselves and often really hard on those around us. That's where it goes bad right there.
Yeah. I think it's that and what you said, and we're such a competitive society, so we're always competing with, how much do you have, or we don't have enough, and we need to have more, and it's just like kind of a never-ending cycle we get into. And so for me personally, I think, kind of what you said and that too, what I just said is why we're so hard on ourselves. And I don't know how Hamza feels about it.
Well, I think Jeff kind of let the cat out of the bag, and what he was talking about a little bit beforehand. He was saying that people need to be present, and many people are hard on themselves because they're either thinking something about what happened in the past, or they're having projections into the future, which are all happening in the present time. So you're hard on yourself because you don't want to be in the present. You're not savoring the present moment because you're in the past or in the future. That has to be hard.
Yeah, those are great takes, guys. Both of those, being overly competitive, being, getting caught up in that competitive energy, and then wishing things were different, either in the past or the future. That'll take you out of the reality zone. That'll take you out of the present, and that's the only place where savoring lives in the present moment. You can't be outside of that space. But boy, it's really easy to get lost in that, and we've got such a media-driven world that's promoting this ideal of, the perfect life or whatever it is that, they're going to promote that week, whatever's, in style. That's tough. That keeps that, if your awareness levels are not tuned up and fired up and pumped up and defined, if you haven't really clearly defined what's important to you and taken the time to make yourself some personal policies that you want to stand by and that you're committed to, you're going to get sucked into that media stream of fantasy that it just fails. It's just going to leave you wanting and wishing, and that cycle just beats people up, and over time they give up, and that's what we've got to fight against. We've got to fight against the apathy that we get caught up in, and through no fault of our own, because like we were talking about, we're trained to just strive all the time and work and be competitive, and not be present. So, okay, great. That's been the training. That's maybe not working the way exactly we want it to. Let's do a little retraining here, because the story's not over. It's a story in development.
Always.
So, Jeff, how important how is it to find that, as you refer to, that beginner's mind, and what are some of the ways you can get there?
That's a great. You guys got good questions today. The only thing that I found that works is a meditation practice. That's the only thing that I've really found that works. And I really emphasize the word practice there because it seems that if I don't do it daily, if I don't really commit to it and stick with it, you lose that beginner's mind a little bit. It fades, it waves in and it waves out. I think once you have a level of awareness, it's kind of always there working for you. But if you really want to cultivate it and have it fired up and ready to go to work every single day, I've found a personal meditation practice is the key for that.
Yeah, I would agree. As a matter of fact, I know someone that meditates. He meditates like an hour every day, but the days that he knows his plate is going to be twice as full, he meditates 2 hours a day. And wow. Some people are like, wow, you're going to meditate, you're going to be busier that day, so you put more time towards it, but when he does that, his whole day just goes great, totally, perfect, flows just great. So he gives more time, to it and has a great result.
I wish I could say it was a magic pill or a silver bullet. It's not, but it does help. It really, really helps. And I've done a couple little retreats here and done a lot of trainings, and everybody's going to develop their own personal practice.
Yeah.
And that's just the thing that I can't emphasize enough. If everybody, people ask me all the time, what's the secret? What's the one thing? I would say it's make time to get to know yourself, because that's presence. That's tuning up. That's like tuning your engine to be present right there. And we talked a lot about that and the importance of being in the present moment. And the beauty is that once you get it going, I found that it's so satisfying and it feels so good. I really look forward to it. It's the absolute first thing I do after getting out of bed. I brew a big cup of hot tea. I'll sit down to meditate, and 20 minutes in, maybe I'll take a little break, sip a little tea. Now it's cooled down. Maybe sit back for another 10 minutes, maybe not. 20 minutes seems like enough to me.
Yeah.
Beginner's mind is a great concept, and there's a lot of ways to attack that, and it all boils back to some of the same things that we've been talking about. Is raising your awareness of mindfulness. And it's funny, people joke about, people talk about mindfulness all day long. For me, mindfulness is an action. It's not the destination. It's just something that you do to create a beginner's mind. You set your personal priorities. I call them policies in my book, personal policies. You get your policies in order across your 5 pillars. You've got 5 pillars of health, relationships, resources, creativity, and fun. And those policies basically are fulfilling the true needs. Those are the true needs that we talked about earlier. Once you get clear on your true needs, you put some policies in place across your pillars, you're going to have a beginner's mind in the sense that you're open to receiving pieces that fill in your puzzle. And you're open to being pulled in different directions beyond what you maybe think you should be doing or have been told that you should be doing. And so that beginner's mind keeps you awake to opportunities and the ability to see, how others are involved and what their needs may be and how you can all work together to collaborate and make things work for each other. You're giving me some ideas to do. I think I should do some beginner's mind T-shirts or hats or something, because like a hat would be great. You know, it's like right on your head there. It's like, okay, beginner's mind hat. I think I'll make that.
Yeah, that's funny.
Nice.
Because every time you put it on, you're going to have to be there for it. You can't forget.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's cool.
Now, when you talk about beginner's mind, we're still kind of at the beginning of 2018, and many people probably have already forgotten what their New Year's resolutions were. They had given up. And, you know, many people kind of fall back into old habits and what have you. Was it meditation that kept you on the onward path, or what kind of strategies did you implement so that you can always see yourself moving forward?
That's great, because that was a big part of the project and the work that I did. You know, writing the book was a big part of it, but the activities that I mentioned earlier were a big part of it as well. And there's one in particular called the Ulysses Contract that it's been the tool. It has been the one tool that has made a difference for me in the ability to get past that resolution syndrome, that New Year's Eve resolution syndrome, where you make these half-baked, half-cocked resolutions, and you just hope that the world delivers the exact right conditions for that to happen, which never happens. So, you know, you get this motivation defeat cycle going, kind of like we talked about earlier. You want to do things, you try, you wish for them, they don't happen. After a while, you quit trying. So what I've come up with is what's called this Ulysses Contract. And it's basically, you know, you've made promises to a friend before, of course. This is making a promise to yourself and taking a look at that promise and breaking it down into what the obstacles might become, to what maybe has worked for other people. So whatever that resolution is, you know, quit something, start something, change something. This helps you break it down into the baby steps that you need and acknowledges the difficulties that are sure to come, and then maps ways around all of those things and connects them in such a way. So it's just a worksheet. It's a one-page worksheet. It's a free website. It's a free download off my website, policypillars.com. It's a simple worksheet. So let's say whatever your resolution is, you put it at the top. You answer the 15 or so blanks that come below that, and at the bottom there's an opportunity to date and sign it. And when you're ready, you fill it out, take as long as you want. When you're ready, when you date and sign that, you've made a contract with yourself, you've made a promise to yourself, and you've made a map how to get you from point A to point B. And, you know, it's not a magic bullet, but it has really helped me make some huge changes in my life by simply breaking them down beyond, you know, a simple resolution. So I really invite all your listeners, I invite you gentlemen, to download the free Ulysses Contract and throw a resolution or two at it and let me know how it goes for you.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, it sounds like you're a big proponent of gratitude, as are Hamza and myself, but maybe you didn't always feel that way, or when did you start to realize how important gratitude was, and just in general and in your own life?
Boy, I really I can't tell you how important that's become, and it's not that I discovered it or sniffed anything out. It was we've all read a lot of the same books, we've seen the same movies, we've had exposure to the same ideas. It's right up there with meditation. You know, after reading 500 books and going through 1,000 seminars, you start to see trends and patterns, and things like meditation and gratitude just kept showing up over and over and over again, to a point where I just realized, you know, that there's definitely something there. People that I really respected were talking about these ideas, so I dug into it. And I found that it's like a muscle. It's like anything else. You know, you're going to work it, it's going to get stronger. And the stronger it gets, there's some amazing things. There's some amazing payoffs that come from it. I've been amazed to find that, you know, a little bit of gratitude will just get you through so much, so many challenges. And it amplifies your sense of available time. It calms down lowers your blood pressure, and it increases your immune system, and it just slows you down. It slows you down, and it opens you up. I think it opens up that savoring muscle just a bit. And I can't stress that enough. And once like we were talking about earlier, it's part of my personal daily practice to flex that muscle and keep it strong and keep my awareness levels up, because there's so many things to be grateful for. It's just really easy to take things for granted. We're problem-solving machines. Our brains are designed to solve problems. So, we're going to find problems if you're, not aware of the fact that it's, being grateful is the flip side for problem solving. All you're going to do is find problems. Gratitude is that thankfulness that for the problems that have been solved and the process that it takes to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's some real fun activities on the in the book too on gratitude, because we're talking about it. It's something that can be done real easily. Simple awareness will pay big dividends in building up. And like we talked about mindfulness, being mindful of gratitude. It's not mindfulness that does you the job, but it's what you're mindful of. And when you flex your mindfulness muscle and put gratitude in there, you're gonna have results. I guarantee this beyond a shadow of a doubt, with complete confidence. If you work those things, they will work for you.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
Yeah.
It reminds me of elders when you were little, and they said, "Be careful what you ask for, because you might get it." Right? And so when you say that, it makes me think of when you were talking about looking in the mirror and people coming into your life that are actually mirroring the energy that you're putting out. And there's always a saying that we don't know how much we wanted to be in these bodies when we incarnated. So, all of life, if we go along with this stream of thought, is gratitude or thankfulness. Like, hey, this is what I wanted to put out, or this is what I wanted to observe, this is what I wanted to go through, and those opportunities are presenting themselves. So you have to be like, hey, yeah, did I create my life? This is the way. Is this how I wanted it to turn out? Or, and I guess at that point you can make your tweaks and what have you based off the contrast. But it's all,
Sure.
I guess, enveloped in the gratitude aspect.
Well, this is where we start to fall off the rails and get a little woo-woo and go a little secret style, but it's fine because it connects to this quantum reality research that's coming out from the scientific world, and their ability to look at matter and realizing that it's not a thing, it's an energy, and the mere fact of looking at it changes what we see. And so you could make a pretty strong argument that gratitude is one of the stronger forces that creates our reality. So we're grateful for things, and as we give thanks for things, we start to see more of those things. It's just like when you buy a car, you start to see cars like yours all over the road. I mean, it's such a weird phenomena, but it's a fact. It seems to work that way. So, yeah, gratitude. You just gave me an idea for another book on gratitude as a force of creating your reality.
All right.
But I'll never write another book, guys.
It won't take 7 years. We can't promise you that, but
heck no, I guarantee you. I'm waiting for the movie myself.
You have a system now, man.
Maybe so. That's what everybody says. When's the next book coming out? I'm like, not anytime soon.
So seriously, you don't plan on writing another book, Jeff?
No plans to, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Part of the thing was getting into it years and years into it. I realized, oh man, this is not for me. But it was cool. It was a good learning process, and part of the revelation of that was I need people. I need to be around more people. I like being around people. I enjoy, even working with my hands. I do handyman work on the side, just to get out and meet people and solve problems and have challenges. And push myself to stay all the time. And yeah, I mean, these are funny things, and it's funny, we live in this world where it's such a money-based world that you get money, and then you think that you don't want to do certain things. You feel like maybe certain things are below you, or you just don't want to do them. It's not like I have a ton of money, but I don't struggle too much, but I still put myself out there pretty much every single day to either volunteer for causes that I think are important, or do work to help people out and make a little bit of money. And I'll be trying new things till my dying day. I found that's been a real good formula, is to just keep pushing yourself, to take that natural striving tendency that we have, and find a way to channel it into doing things that you get rewarded by and feel good about. And that kind of just keeps that train a rolling,
Yeah.
That's why I'm personally looking forward to the second part of this book, because if we're looking at quantum and you're filling out this Ulysses Contract mindfulness map, I'm asking that, where are you putting it? Are you staying with the quantum and putting it on a vision board? Are you putting it on a refrigerator so that you're beholden to that contract? Like, it's a reminder of what you set out to do as far as goals and hopes and dreams, isn't it?
Sure, that would be a great way to go. I think there's no limit to how you can maintain mindfulness on that. There's no one way to do it. I found with the Ulysses contracts myself is I'll start filling them out. I wish I had a bunch. I have a bunch of them, but I don't think they're really handy right now. But I've got one here on quitting smoking. This was a long-term one. I'd smoked for 20 or something plus years and wanted to quit many, many, many times and never had any luck with it. So kind of had given up, quitting. And then in the middle of doing this work and making up these worksheets and these contracts, I decided, okay, let's just put my money where my mouth is here. Well, it probably took a couple years to fill it out, really, to fill it out correctly and to put enough detail in there. I probably worked on the contract for a couple years before signing it. And then, with that much effort into it, I didn't have to think about it. It was just always on my mind. I'd made a contract, I'd made a commitment, and I'd put lots of little pieces in place to ensure my success. So that was a really complicated one. But a lot of them are a lot simpler than that. People want to lose weight. People want to find love. They want to have more fun. You can make a contract for these things, and then the contract will help you put the pieces in place to maintain that mindfulness, whether it be a note on the mirror or putting a calendar event in that has an alert on it. Maybe making some appointments, setting some dates on the calendar, putting some things into your upcoming routine that are going to help keep your mindfulness on that contract and help keeping you moving forward towards that better state of awareness that you're seeking. So yeah, lots of ways to go about that. No shortage of ways to maintain mindfulness. It's easy with these computers and stuff these days too. I'll set something up and I'll set an alert that repeats, every third day at noon or something. And boy, when that thing goes off, I better make some sort of action or take some sort of action or do something that I know I need to do and want to do. It just doesn't come naturally until you've done it a few times, and then it becomes natural, it becomes easy, and then you don't really have to worry about it because that's part of your reality then. You've created that.
That's actually
Are you a believer in you do something for 21 straight days it takes to form a habit?
I've heard that 21-day thing for as long as I can remember. It hasn't really worked that way for me personally.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. Maybe.
I think it's different for everyone. I think some people it could be a week. Others, maybe it's 8 weeks before it becomes a habit. But yeah, I think it's different for everyone.
It's different for everyone, and like I say, I've made probably 50 Ulysses contracts myself, and I found about half the time you're ready to do it anyway. Like it's been brewing in the back of your brain for however long. And then you put a little form to it, and you put a little structure to it, and you identify some of the obstacles, and map ways around them. By the time you sign it, it's already done. I mean, you've done it. It's the subconscious has done most of the heavy lifting. You just need to finish putting some pieces in place. You know, and about another half the time, there's still some missing pieces, and it takes some time to put them in place. And you know, there's sometimes it doesn't work out exactly the way you expected, but you'll find that it leads you to the next question, and that makes it a lot clearer. You know.
I think the biggest part.
Go ahead, Hamza. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, Jeff, about the biggest part, in my opinion, of the contract that you're talking about is the signature, the actual writing it down, that form of commitment. And I was listening to Damon John. He was speaking recently, one of the guys on Shark Tank, and they had, you know, they're asking him, "You're successful, blah, blah, blah. Well, who do you look to?" And, you know, he had named some people, and he's like, "Well, what are some of the things that they do that, you know, others don't do?" And he said that they actually write things down. And the fact that 2018, they are still writing it down, like there's something that you had mentioned that was a trigger for me, Jeff. You said once you write it down or you have that signature, it's like a trigger to your self-conscious that, oh, okay, this is something that we can help him with, or this is something that he wants to get done. And it was a trigger because I know that the generation behind us, our kids in school now, they're not even learning cursive anymore. So there will be a time where kids may not even have signatures. They're just so tethered to electronics. So will that cut off what their goals are because they're not actually signing an electron, or they're not doing a physical signature, they're doing electronic signatures? Like there's some type of connection, in my opinion. I want to get your take on that.
That's fascinating. I tend to want to agree with you. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You know, one of the early examples I was working with that kind of motivated me to, you know, write my stuff down was just looking around. Everything that's just fascinating. You know, the world is so beautiful. There's so much to look at. These skyscrapers or a bridge or, you know, a Tesla Roadster. It all started as an idea that somebody took some time to write things down. And then, boom, I get shivers. I got a shiver right now just thinking about it, because that's the quantum reality in action. So to answer your question, I don't know if you can do all that electronically or not. I get a lot out of a notepad. You know, I keep a notepad with me at all times, and I write down ideas and, you know, capture ideas, and that's how everything starts for me is longhand. So I don't know. I would have to say there's a chance that going digital might be kind of short-circuiting that process a little bit.
Well,
kind of scary.
You wouldn't be the first. I have to be honest. You're not the first to experience shivers during our podcast. So,
and it's funny. I just went to see Damon John speak a few weeks ago, and got to shake his hand. Yeah, he came doing on his book tour here in Santa Cruz.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Cool guy, you know, super comfortable with himself, just at ease.
Yeah.
Got things to say, and good energy. Boy, great energy there.
Yeah, he's definitely in his own skin.
For real.
Yeah, the other side of that, the signature is our favorite bad boy that we watched as a little kid is Bart Simpson from The Simpsons, right? Every time the show comes on, it's been out for like 30 years, but he's always writing on the chalkboard how bad he is, like how subconsciously is that affecting childhood from, right? You know what I mean? If we could stay in the same line of thinking. I had to write, and when I was in school, if we were in trouble in detention, you had to write something like 500 times. What did that do to your subconscious as an adult? Like,
it can't be good.
It can't be good, man.
And there we go. That's our teachers. Those are people of authority telling us to do these things. Yikes. Badness. That's hilarious. I'll never watch The Simpsons the same way again. That's great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I like you guys a lot, boy. You really got a good thing going here. I'm glad you're pushing each other to explore the world and explore your realities and putting things down on paper and putting things out on the internet. That's some great energy, and good on you.
Oh, thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you. We can't hold you without we know about the Wisdom to Work, the mindfulness book. We want to know what's the next steps. Where's Jeff headed in 2018 and beyond?
Yeah, 2018 is the year of experimentation for me. Yeah, we're taking a lot of the ideas and living them. You know, it's easy to write things down. So it's just been about a year now. The book's really been done. And I started in 2017 on a spiritual safari and started to try and really, reel in my ideas, take them off the paper and put them into real life. And 2018 is about taking it to the next step and experimenting, because I don't really claim to know exactly the next step. So I'm trying lots of different things. And there's, this podcast that we're doing is part of that puzzle. Just trying lots of different stuff and trying to figure out how to get my material, how to share my material, the best way to share my material. So I'm doing some festivals, speaking at some festivals this year, and mentioned earlier I'm doing some counseling for seniors in my neighborhood here, and just trying lots of different things. Sticking with the meditation, continuing to go to retreats, maybe a few resorts if I'm lucky, and we'll see where that takes us. Right now, it's just a work in progress. It's not even so much about what I'm doing or where I'm going. I've kind of stopped worrying about any of that. Really, it's I've come to an acceptance that I'm enough just exactly as I am. I don't need to have anything different than it is. And if I just keep doing what I do, I imagine the universe will, through the quantum reality, bring me whatever I need.
Sounds good.
Any last
I am going to try
David?
some stuff. I am going to try some stuff in 2018, though. You can bet on that. We're not giving up. We're not giving in. We're just trying to go with the flow a little bit better.
Yeah.
Nice. Any last questions, David?
No, I think I asked all the ones I was going to ask.
So you had mentioned your site before. Where can people get in touch with you via your site and social media, Jeff?
Fantastic. Yes, it's policypillars.com, just like it sounds. And therein lies the magical links to everything else you'd want to know about the book, Putting Wisdom to Work. Got a little Facebook page, of course, have to do that. But basically, it's just you get the book and read it and do a couple of the activities and enjoy the process. It's going to be another piece to some people are going to get some real value out of this. I guarantee it. I used to give a money back guarantee on the book because I was that confident, but it's just you gotta do things for yourself. So policypillars.com will give you some tools to do some good things for yourself. And I wish everybody the very, very best out there in learning to be themselves and enjoy themselves and just have fun in the process.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you have just been in tune to another episode of Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza.
And I am David.
And Jeff Hotchkiss, it was a pleasure speaking with you this hour.
Thank you, guys. Really enjoyed it. Appreciate you all.
Yes.
Stay in touch.
All righty. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Good night.
All right.
Cheers.
Thanks again for checking out another episode of Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective podcast. Please check us out on our website at intrinsicmotivation.life, where you can click on the Speak Pipe button and leave any suggestions for future podcasts that you'd like us to cover. Also, check us out on our social media sites. We have a YouTube channel, Facebook page, iTunes podcast, in addition to Stitcher and Google Play, all under Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. Check you out next time. Have a great day.